Today I'm going to do a beginner's guide to handstand blocks. Now it's a beginner's guide. You could be doing one arms or you could just doing two arm handstand. It doesn't really matter. We just want to talk about handstand blocks and how we can start to use them. Let's just talk about the blocks first. So I have two different sizes. These are both from Yuval on hands, Yuval Alion. If you don't follow him, follow him. He's a great hand balancer. He was one of my first handstand coaches, and he has his own handstand blocks. You can make your own, it doesn't really matter. There's two different sizes that I use. So there's these big ones and the smaller ones. I actually prefer the smaller ones. Basically you just grip hold of it like you're gonna throw it. So you either have two fingers around the front or three fingers. Some people have one finger. I would recommend two or three. You'll see most people will go. But basically you just want to be able to hold onto the block well. If you are going to make your own, I'd recommend that you don't make them too shallow. So if you notice there that my finger doesn't overlap, it's close to the edge of it, but it doesn't overlap the edge. You just don't want to put it down onto the floor and have your finger touching the floor. That's really annoying. You can use yoga blocks, but yoga blocks tend to be a little bit softer and they tend to be a little bit too wide, so you actually can't get hold of the block. And now to start with, these are going to probably feel a little bit harder than your normal handstand balance, whatever you're doing on the floor. But in time, most handstand drills become easier on the blocks because you do have the benefit that you can pull yourself around instead of just pushing and changing the hip and shoulder position to control the handstand. You can pull yourself around, which gives you a little bit more control and option. And that's what we want to do to start with. We just want to practice our normal balance. So you want to do your handstand entries and your balance and just see how that compares to your normal level. So if you're using the wall, use the wall obviously on the blocks. If you just started freestanding, I'd maybe go back to the wall and practice your basic heel pull, toe pull type movements and just get control on the blocks and feel like you're confident enough to have a play with them. So have a little play, see whether you're going to go two fingers at the front or three fingers, and then just try a few kick-ups. Now one thing I like to do with the handstand entries is see if you can get some repetition between going between the blocks and the floor. Away from the blocks, show control, go onto the blocks, show control, go back to the floor again, and see if you can get that repetition of the same entry quality, control, whether you're on the blocks and the floor. Now obviously if you're used to the floor and you've never used the blocks before, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve using them, but that can only help with controlling and making your handstand stronger. And obviously just repeat that process whether it's freestanding or against the wall. Then I just practice some straight holds, some straddle holds and some tuck holds. Whatever level you've been doing on the floor, just do the same thing on the blocks and see how they feel. And you could do the same thing. You could repeat the same shape or combination of shapes on the floor, then on the blocks, then back to the floor again. Okay, once we've done that, we've got a bit familiar with the blocks, then we can start to play with some drills that we can't do just on the floor. So the one I recommend everyone starts with is basically just kicking up with one hand on the block, one hand on the floor. Don't think about technique, just think about balance and control. So just try and find your balance up there. Don't try and do like a one arm handstand or anything. Just see if you can balance one hand on the block, one hand on the floor. Obviously once you've done it one side, swap over to the other side. Now again, that could be up against the wall, so just have your heels on the wall if you're doing that drill. Try and keep nice and close to the wall though, so you're not leaning over too much. Now there is a bushfire going on at the moment, so there's helicopters and planes and fire engines and stuff going past. Okay, once we've got comfortable with just handstanding on one hand on the floor and one hand on the block, what we're going to do now is see if we can transfer a little bit more weight to the hand that's on the floor and ideally slide the block out the way and then return to two hands on the floor. Now obviously we can use that to learn the one arm handstand. I don't want to make this about the one arm handstand, I just want this to be more of a beginner's guide to the blocks. But there are some rules that we need to try and think about. When you transfer some weight across, So what we want to think about is, so when I'm putting weight into this right hand, I'm going to push the elbow in and the shoulder in to keep it on top of this hand. What we don't want to do is take the shoulder this way, because as I push the block out, especially if I throw it that way, I'm going to disappear over to that direction. So what I want to do is just pull in here as we transfer a little bit of weight, which should make this one lighter and I can lift it out of the way. So I'm into position, I straddle across and I'm pushing that right shoulder, right elbow into the midline, which makes that left arm lighter and I can slide it out of the way. So what we don't want to do there is do that, because you'll always end up falling that way. And then if that feels okay, if you can start to play with that on both sides, no, it definitely is easier against the wall. If you need to go to the wall, just make sure that shoulders stand on top of the working hand. And then we can just do the same thing on 2 blocks. Now when you go 2 blocks, we ideally should be using some fingertips in between the block height. So I'm here shifting across to that right side. I'm going to move the block, I'm going to go to fingertips, then I'm going to go down to that side, then I'm going to get rid of the block and come to that side. So there's some fingertips in the middle, so ideally transferring weight here, keeping this shoulder on top of the hand. I slide this block out of the way, I go fingertips and then I lower to the palm. Same thing, left shoulder, elbow into the midline as I transfer the weight, slide this out of the way, come back down again. Now remember, what I'm focusing on today is more the beginner playing with the blocks, so don't worry too much about the one arm work. That's something that's intermediate to advanced. If you're working on those, then you want to work on more of the detail, and I'm not going to cover that in today's video. Now I'm making the video short and sweet today because there's helicopters flying about, the noise isn't great, and I just wanted to make this an introduction to the blocks. Let me know down in the comments if you have any particular questions about these. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks guys.